It is that time. It is Thursday, which means that it is time for our buddy Niko Moreno from Pulso Sports in the Soccer Bar. He's hanging out with us, and yes, it's on tape because when this is being released on the audio side, I'm hoping he's still asleep and getting ready for the Thanksgiving that he described to us last week as to how things are going to be there with all of the athletic endeavors and all of the food and the mixing of the families. And so we're just going to talk stuff. That's the official term. Niko, thanks for hanging out on tape.
Thank you, John, for having me as always. Hello and happy Thanksgiving to anybody watching this whenever this records. Obviously, Thanksgiving Day. I'm sure you guys have better things to do. But if you are, by any chance, doing the turkey and have us next to you on the laptop or the smart TV or the phone, whatever, thank you guys for embracing me so dearly. Thank you, John, for sticking with me, man, and allowing me to provide you with whatever take El Rolo has Thursdays or Wednesdays or whenever my man John says, let's do it.
All right, so let's do it, El Rolo. All right, now let's start with CONMEBOL because we led with it on Wednesday morning show for obvious reasons on a bunch of different fronts. You had the first win ever by anybody at the Maracanã, and so of course it had to be Argentina. Otamendi found a step ladder and he smashes it in the back of the net. 6th goal in his 109th cap. 1-0 win, but there was once again silliness, and that's the word I'll use until we get revved up here. All of the madness at the beginning for the second time in a row, where you have folks with weaponry chasing after fans and folks coming up on, it's like last time before this happened. You remember the dude that came out and I think it was during Libertadores, and he comes and he's got the gun hanging out of the back of his jeans. And
I did hear that. I did. Actually, I wasn't watching it live. Then I went and looked for some of that video. And yeah, I mean, that is just uncalled for. And I don't know how he got it there.
And then last night, as we're talking, but on Tuesday night, you have riot police trying to discipline the Argentine fans. And the place was sold out. Traditionally, I think it was like 67,000. Place is sold out, no surprise. But what they normally do is they take supporters of the visitors, put them up in a corner in the upper tank, and they have the section beneath, immediately beneath it, open in case something has to happen, And so what do? They bring them to the lower level. They put them in the corner of the end zone, and all hell breaks loose. I mean, Emi Martinez goes from one end of the field to the other, sees a cop with a nightstick, I guess for lack of a better phrase, and is trying to keep the guy from hitting the fans. He's like, you're reaching for nightsticks. Lionel Messi is telling, he wanders over with the rest of the team. They're like, this is what's going on. Messi gathers the troops, and he sends them down the tunnel. He wasn't having any of it, and we were even wondering if the game was going to start.
Yeah, it was delayed. There's I don't want to fault just the Argentine fans, because I do know that there was some instigation from Brazil fans. I heard, and this is not from me, this is just me talking to some friends of mine who were at the stadium, and they said that the police was being overly aggressive, even with young kids, pushing them, shoving them. And that just built some animosity between both Brazil and Argentina. That has happened. It shouldn't happen, but it does. I think passion is one thing, and then being a thug is another. But as a police officer, somebody that's supposed to be there to, if not serve justice, to at least manage situations and de-escalate, because every cop, regardless of where you are in this world, you should have some de-escalating tactics, and it didn't seem like that's the way things were going. So obviously I wasn't there. Obviously I can't completely say it was just Brazil police department or riot police that started things, or if it was the Argentine fans who started it. I've heard both versions. When you get into a thread of tweets and sometimes videos without context can tell you one story, and then you look at some other context, and that's not the way it is. The conclusion here is that there's no room in the sport for any of this to happen, and there needs to be better preparation from CONMEBOL as a federation, as the organizing body, to ensure that players are kept safe, that fans are kept safe, and that a game starts when it's supposed to, because you've done enough preparation pre-game in order to get everything going. Bring the fans from Argentina way before the game starts or way after. Do more than what you're doing, because it obviously has not been enough and is unacceptable for one of the oldest and biggest and most important conferences in the planet.
Thursday, and I mean, then they get into the match, and I mean, there were some things legitimately, I didn't think you were gonna have 11 aside to finish. You didn't, but it took a while. I mean, you get Gabriel Jesus basically takes one of those open-handed raw or smackdowns, hands to the face, hits Rodrigo square early on, no card, smashes him in the face, draws blood, nothing for Jesus. He gets hit again, no card. And then in the second half, Joelinton comes on, and then it was the one that was the least amount of contact. Literally, is like a do-si-do on the dance floor doing a square dance, and no contact or maybe a slight little push. That was what got you the red from, I guess, previous contact and everything. But, yeah, I mean, what has happened to Brazil where now with Diniz, who's the interim, I mean, he's the substitute teacher. We get this. So apparently Carlo Ancelotti's around the corner. But what is going on with Brazil? I mean, it is no longer Jogo Bonito. I mean, literally, it is like 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and, you're trying to run student body right, man. I mean, what is up with Brazil?
Look, man, this is the worst Brazil I've seen in my lifetime. And I want to make that very clear. And this will go on to some of the other things that we'll touch on, because Colombia just came from a historic win over this exact same team. But it's a little bit of everything, obviously. And I'm not denying that there are some injuries to this team, some key injuries. One that happened against Colombia, talking about Vini. But there's other important injuries that I'm not even going to mention, because it's beyond that. I do believe that in today's day and age, Brazil doesn't have that superstar that they've had in the past, the Ronaldinhos, because Neymar, whether he's kind of, oh, is that what that is? Oh, my man Pele, of course. They don't have the Romarios. They just don't have the Rivaldos that they've had in the past, because Neymar, whether he's past his prime or he's just into other things, and obviously he's injured, but I feel like he has not been able to lead his teams the way other Brazilian superstars have. And the talent level is there, but there's no structure at this point in time, because like you mentioned, there's a substitute teacher that you're kind of just hoping that can get you some results. And you could tell that collectively Brazil is not the Brazil of old. There's no transitional play. There's no prettiness to their way of soccer. The series of passing is just not quite there. They're resorting to a lot of these physical, rough play. I found it very interesting that a lot of Brazil fans were calling the Argentine players classless and dirty, when Brazil started all of it. And if I'm not mistaken, they had 15 or 16 more fouls than Brazil throughout the whole game. So, than Argentina throughout this whole game. Saying that the ref was benefiting Argentina is like, what is it? The teapot and the kettle and the what's the reference?
It's pot calling the kettle black.
That is exactly what it is, because they both have taken advantage of these same situations in the past, and now because it doesn't go your way, you're calling out the other person. But in reality, what's wrong with Brazil is that there is a lack of structure. There's a lack of an identity that they no longer have. And those reference players are just no longer there. There's no leadership within Brazil. You don't have that Dunga player that's going to just keep everybody in line, everybody going. They're just all over the place. So unfortunately for Brazil, this is the worst national team that I've seen in my lifetime, and there's just no doubt about that.
1-0 on the win on the night. Ecuador over Chile 1-0. Colombia beats Paraguay 1-0. Uruguay no problem with Bolivia 3-0. Peru and Venezuela had a 1-1 draw. And, when you look at this now with all of those results, here's your standings after match day 6. Argentina on top at 5-0-1. They've only given up 2 goals in 6 matches. No real surprise. They're on top by 2 points over Uruguay. Uruguay, 13 goals in 6 matches. I mean, that's over 2 per match on average. Colombia is at 12 points. Venezuela's at 9. Ecuador's at 8. Brazil is at 7 points right now, and they are 2-1-3 plus 1 in goal difference. Paraguay is at 5 points ahead of Chile on goal difference. Bolivia is at 3 points at 1-0-5, and Peru is at 2 points with they're in 10th place after match day 6. So when you look at things right now after match day 6, what sticks in your mind?
I think that there were no surprises. Even the Brazil-Argentina, as I mentioned, you knew the decline that Brazil has had since before even the qualifiers. They were coming in from a 2-0 loss against Uruguay. So Argentina beating them was just, I think, in the books, is what you expected out of it. The disappointments have been Brazil, obviously, but you cannot forget about Peru. Peru, after Tigre Gareca left that national team's bench and he was unable to continue working with that project, they've really fallen off, man. And there is no firepower up top. La Padula in this last couple of games has been ineffective in front of goal when he's had opportunities. Against Venezuela, he barely got on the ball. You have Renato Tapia playing at center back, which is crazy when you got Luis Aram and you got Zambrano and other players to play that position next to Alexander Cayens. The midfield is a mess. Against Venezuela, they scored the first goal on a nice play individually and in transition. It is a nice ball cross. The header is wonderful, but after that, they just get too deep and they allow Venezuela to settle into this game. Unfortunately for Reynoso, I think that he's been too experimental. He hasn't really found a starting 11. And again, I think the Tapia at center back is something that we shouldn't see from Peru. I've always thought he's a very good player when he plays defensive midfield, and you having to go to the resource without you really needing to, because again, I think Luis Abraham for Atlanta, he finally settled into being this guy that you were hoping he was going to be. So why not go with him? The substitutions were awful throughout this Venezuela game. So I think that my conclusion in terms of Peru is that Reynoso is kind of managing his way out of the job. Mm-hmm. And I think that if it doesn't happen this window, it might happen in the next one. But Peru has been atrocious. Now let's talk about the surprises. Uruguay has found what we thought they would, obviously with El Maestro in the bench. But Núñez, finally, that guy that you always thought once he figured out how to put the ball in the back of the net, he'd be this fantastic player. He really has been. I mean, he has the speed, he has the dribbling skills, he has the power. Now he's putting some goals away. Uruguay, for me, even above Argentina, they're the team to watch. Argentina's leading. Argentina has Messi. Argentina obviously has a group of players that has been doing this for a long time. But now you got Scaloni talking about, I don't know about my future. You know, we've done so well. There's a certain expectation. What happens with Scaloni? What happens with Lionel Messi? I don't know if I see the generational change as clear for Argentina. So I think Uruguay is really the team to look at in CONMEBOL. And Colombia. What a surprise that they've been. As a Colombian, obviously, I'm happy for it. I'm not in cloud nine, though. I want to make this clear. There's a lot of Colombians that are in cloud nine. Colombia's amazing. They're doing everything right. No. Let's go back to what I just said 60 seconds ago. Colombia, for the very first time in their history, beat Brazil in Barranquilla or at home, because we've played them in Bogota and Barranquilla, but they've played the worst Brazil of this last decade, let's just say. Um, they did it also with some issues. Vinicius' injury kind of changed that game, because if you look at those first 25 minutes, Colombia was in some trouble. I think James Rodriguez has been fantastic. He's been this creative player that, as always, does great for Colombia. I'm still not sold on Borré as the number 9, but he's putting some balls away. Defensively, they've been nice. Camilo Vargas, the goalkeeper, I think has been the most consistent player. But I got to give Nestor Lorenzo some credit. I've given him some heat in the past. I got to give him credit. Character, the way, style of play, being aggressive with his substitutions has all paid off. And now Colombia, I feel like they're really building on some talented players. There's still some holes here and there, but I think Colombia and Uruguay are the two surprises from the last two FIFA call-ups and FIFA play in CONMEBOL.
So if you're not on cloud 9, where are you? Cloud 5 or 6?
I think 6. You know, I'm very cautious with Colombia, because if there's something that they did right against Paraguay, is that they didn't downplay. Sometimes Colombia has the tendency to play to their opposition. Paraguay is also a team that's very limited, with a lot of injuries, that they're not great at the time. And Colombia dominated, but despite missing a lot of chances on goal, I thought that they were the protagonist and they controlled the tempo. So I was good with that. So I'm at a 6 because of the style of play, the module that I think Nestor Lorenzo has built in Colombia. But I'm not on cloud 9, because we still don't have that elite power up top. I talked about Borré. I don't think he's the guy necessarily. Cordoba came on and had a silly yellow right off the bat. Wasn't great. So can we find a guy that, other than Luis Diaz on the left, can he do something? And let me take 5 minutes as well to give credit to Luis Diaz. Adverse circumstances in Colombia. His father finally released after being kidnapped for 14 or so days. Has a wonderful night. Gets 2 goals. Is the leader of this team with the ball, without it, on the field, off the field. So Colombia, things are looking great. But praising Luis Diaz, praising Nestor Lorenzo, but there's still a little bit missing up top for this Colombia team to really satisfy everything that you need to be in order to be an elite team in CONMEBOL.
All right, so shifting from CONMEBOL to CONCACAF, you mentioned missing a little bit up top. That could apply to Serginho Dest. Go.
Ooh.
You opened that. You gave me the great segue, so I figured I would take it. Serginho Dest, man, what is up with that?
Man, it's just I don't want to be as cutthroat as perhaps some have been with him.
Yeah.
He's a young guy. He's a young kid. It doesn't excuse what happened in the moment in time, but it has to be a learning lesson. And the real reflection from it and what he does with that terrible moment against Trinidad and Tobago is really gonna tell you everything you need to know about his career. Because you got to be mature. You got to understand that that was unnecessary, that it wasn't just silly. It was dumb. Like, it was just straight stupid,
Yep.
Honestly, at that moment in time. And you deserve all the heat that you're getting. But I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt because of your age. I know that you've been a professional, you've been in top teams, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a mature player. So, Serginho, I'm talking to you. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. That's a learning lesson, but that's one of the dumbest, most costing things I've seen for the U.S. men's national team in the last 5 or 6 years.
You know, and this was the trivia question that was posed. You know who the last person to get an assist and a red card in a match was before Serginho Dest did this week?
Donovan.
Serginho Dest, last year, Mexico, Nations League.
Oh, wow. I should have just gone with the same one. This one was different, though.
Oh,
This one was very telling. This one was at an unnecessary moment.
mhm.
There's frustration, sure, but you're winning the game. You are not controlling it. You're not playing great, but you're still ahead of the game. I don't understand what would make you want to talk to the ref that way and feel like you have some entitlement because of who you are to talk down to a CONCACAF official. It's just unnecessary and is unacceptable. And I know Greg kind of brushed it off a little bit, but I have no doubt that internal conversations will be had. And if it's not going off and making him earn his spot back, definitely not counting with him for a couple of games would be something that he can do to ensure that this just doesn't go unnoticed, because he needs to have some repercussions for what he did.
You won't have him against Jamaica in the semifinals at Jerry World coming up next time around. And so the U.S. gets to face Andre Blake in net. Congratulations. Good on you in the semifinals in the Nations League. So we put that one to the side. And so U.S., they advance. We know what happened, down to 10 because of a moment of stupid. And then the other matches the other night, Jamaica, now we know why the U.S. is playing Jamaica, because Canada, what in the wide world of sports is going on up there? Giving up 3 goals in 15 minutes. You had it, then you didn't have it.
Yeah, you have to be on for 90 minutes, and the defensive woes and the easy goals that they allowed Jamaica to have should not happen to a process of this group of players that has been with each other as long as they have. When you have some of the talent and the quality that Jamaica doesn't. Now, Jamaica has some attributes, and they're quick and they're fast, and a lot of times they play like they have nothing to lose because, hey, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
So they put you on your heels sometimes, but you would think that Canada, with the experience that they have on the field, they'd manage the game better, control possession, understand the moments in the game, and they were unable to do that. It's a little bit, it's not just about the moment, but it's a little bit concerning moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward for this team that, for guys like me, thought they were going to do a lot better in the World Cup. And then when they didn't get those results despite playing pretty good, it seems like they've been on the decline ever since. So can you bring that team back? Can you make sure that this group has a manager that can set a module that fits this team? Can you create perhaps a different culture than what you have right now? Because that sort of dismissal for a team after you have them beat at a specific moment in the game, it goes beyond this match. It's a mental thing, and you need to make sure that you're working on that for a team like Canada.
So then the late game, Mexico and Honduras. This was the one to watch because Mexico had a ladder to climb. They dug themselves a hole. Somebody from a PG&E had to send a ladder down and try to see if they could climb their way out of it, out of that hole. And they did. It took a while, went to penalties, gets the 2-2. Nothing happens in the extra 30. You go to PKs, and then you get the Duke there. After Menjivar, not once, but twice, leaves his line, saves both balls twice, but then third time you end up with the ball going in the back of the net during PKs. I mean, as Jarrett said, this game was on bath salts, man. I mean, this one was out of control.
It was. And let me focus real quick on a little bit of a reality glance for Mexico. I think that they have been a little bit on cloud 9 for a small spell of time when Lozano took over. He was the chosen one. He's the guy that was going to put him in the next level. And we've ignored, or some Mexican fans have ignored, the real problem, which is the lack of talent and development of players. And you're seeing that happen. They have not been amazing. They have not been great. They were beat by a better team in the first leg. they go into this one, and Honduras started off on the front foot. Honduras had some clear chances in front of goal that they did not put away. Uh, Obviously, that's on Honduras. But if you want to judge this game, it wasn't just Mexico dominated and winning this game 2-0. It was a game that they struggled with, that they scored a goal on the 43rd that was circumstantial. And then the controversy before the controversy is the amount of time that Mexico is allowed to play after the minutes were already called, right? I think it's 11 and a half minutes that they were able to play. And they literally get the second goal to send this game into overtime in that 11 minute.
At 100.30. 100.30 was when it went in the net.
Imagine that. So there's your controversy. But at the end of the day, it's a reality for Mexico that does not seem to understand that they're no longer that giant that they used to be. And Honduras, they weren't playing dirty. They weren't playing physical. It was an uneven ground. It was en el Azteca. It was in your house. And they still almost paint the face. I mean, they almost win this game if they were able to put away some of the opportunities. And or if not, they should have won this. They should have lost this game 1-0 and been eliminated from going into Copa America. So I just think that beyond the PKs, beyond a goalkeeper that definitely was off the line both times. I mean, I looked at it, I slowed it down. Obviously, my family over here was rooting for Mexico. My wife, my son, my wife's full Mexican, my son half and half, obviously, wanted this to go his way. So he was definitely off his line. But all in all, the only positives for Mexico is Magallon seemed to be a guy that could really replace Ochoa. Mm-hmm. Chucky Lozano found his magic at times. It wasn't consistent. It wasn't 90 minutes. He settled into the game and was able to do some things. I think that the center backs played decently and not as bad as in the past, but there is no real game changer for this Mexican team, and that's a reality. It's beyond the controversy. It's just a reality for the Mexican Federation.
Panama, Mexico, U.S., Jamaica in the CONCACAF Nations League semis. And then in the play-in matches, you've got Canada versus Trinidad and Tobago, Costa Rica, and Honduras starts on Thursday, March 21st at AT&T. Saturday is the meat and the sandwich in Frisco to determine the other two teams, and then you figure out your winners and your losers. From Thursday, they play on Sunday to determine what the lay of the land is when it comes to CONCACAF Nations League going forward.
Yeah, before we move forward, I do want to say that I've always been a Greg Berhalter, I don't want to say defender, and I'm not going to say that I'm somebody like I'm his lawyer over here trying to get you to protect the guy. But I have been on his side. But these last two games were concerning for his process. I do think that changes within his own style of play need to happen. Things like what happened with Serginho have to be really focused on. And there needs to be a different U.S. team against Jamaica. There is no circumstances in which Trinidad and Tobago is fighting you for possession. Trinidad and Tobago is putting you in the positions that they did in this game. You need to utilize Reina better. You need to figure out what's going to happen with your attacking third. Balogun not being able to be as effective as he is for his club is something that you need to look into. The wing play, that the ability to stretch out your opponent is not happening. So there are things that Greg needs to do. And as someone who's had his back in the past, I'm going to put a little bit of heat on him in this one and just say, hey, Greg, we need to figure it out. There's a little too much talent here for us to be playing as pragmatic and ineffective as they have.
And you got to get Christian Pulisic healthy, too, to be
100%.
Man top. In the 80s, in the 80s, in the 80th minutes from 80 to 89, when Mexico was trailing, I admit that what I do most of the time is I will watch the Spanish broadcast because I enjoy the energy. I will watch Liga MX. I will watch Liga MX because of how it's presented on TUDN. I will watch matches like what we saw last night with El Tri in Honduras on Telemundo, because when Andres Cantor is in the booth, I'm going to watch. I mean, that's just how I'm wired in these situations. In the 80s, from like 85 to 89, Mexico is trailing. It's at Estadio Azteca. And because the team is trailing on goal kicks, the fans decided to bring the chant out all over again. That stupid chant with those stupid words that has no place in this game. And Ivan Barton decided to ignore the chant as it was being, pronounced throughout the Estadio Azteca. And that bugged me. I mean, I don't know what the mindset was. It's like, last time I thought it was like you hear the chant, you go, bruh, timeout. You have PA make the announcement. They do it again, and I think they did it more than once.
They did.
The second time, timeout. Then you're getting there, and then it's getting serious. And the third time, everybody goes. Ivan Barton made no effort whatsoever to enforce anything associated with the chant, and it is now to the point to where and this goes to the point that you were making about what we're seeing and what we're not seeing really from Mexico these days. The fans use the chant not as much against the opposition, but as a weapon against their own team because they're that mad. And so it's this double-edged thing that you're seeing now, and we didn't see anything enforced last night when the chant was happening, even if it was as a weapon against your own side.
Yeah, I expect the referee to be reprimanded or not do any more CONCACAF games in this nation league, or moving forward in at least a couple of games is what in South America we could put him in the freezer, because he was atrocious when it comes to obviously enforcing that rule that was set in place for a specific reason. When it comes to managing the game in general, and the allowed time after a game, I think that there's a lot to look into the way he kind of lost the reins of these games in general. And I think you're right. I think if CONCACAF decided, and FIFA in general accepted those terms, whenever that chance starts going, referees need to be just as stringent as they are with anything else. Offsides, challengeable plays, everything, hands to the face. You need to be able to control the crowd. And the fact that he literally ignored it, that's the exact word that you used. That's 100% accurate. He ignored completely what was going on around it. And I don't know if it was the moment, if it was the game was too big for him and he was just focused on here, or if it was purposeful. But I would have no problem, and I would understand the frustration from Honduras fans or anybody watching the game when that type of thing is being ignored.
And I like your phrase, in the freezer. I might have to steal that one when it comes to placing officials on time. Put them in timeout. You have them wear the cap. You put them in the corner. They're in the freezer. I'll have to steal that one. Two topics down, one to go. And it is Thursdays with Niko here, Pulso Sports and the Soccer Bar at Sports Pulso on the 280 character app, and at the Soccer Bar on the 280 character app. Saturday is for the Eastern Conference. Sunday is for the Western Conference when it comes to the Final Four in each. As we look at the Eastern Conference, it's the purple team hosting Columbus. I'm sorry, they're dangerous. They've shown it over and over again. Wilfred Nancy, yes, he finished third in the Coach of the Year voting. I will still maintain that the topic coming up in the Western Conference should have gotten votes and did not. But Columbus at the purple team is your early game on Season Pass, and a game that I will maintain will probably set the sport back a good 10 years. Cincinnati hosting Philadelphia at TQL on 8 o'clock, because I'm looking at what's going on there in the Eastern Conference. That Philly-Cincy game, I mean, that is like, when you're in that is like rush hour traffic, literally. It's like you're in rush hour traffic, you kind of get things started, then you stop. And it's like, okay, so I'm not moving. got that 18-wheeler in front of you, the guy that likes to mash on his brakes. You think you've got more room than you do. 18-wheeler mashes his brakes. You got smoke coming from the tires, and then you've got to hit your brakes too. That's what I'm anticipating with Cincy and Philly. I think that the more entertaining game will be the purple team hosting Columbus, but literally mashing of the brakes, stops and starts. I mean, if you don't know how to drive a clutch, you're going to burn your clutch out with that game. I mean, that second game on Saturday could just be absolute shenanigans.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it should be turned around, right? The primetime game should be this Columbus Orlando game and not a Cincinnati Philly that might put you to bed. But maybe that's the course. Maybe, they want you to go to bed nice and even. But let's start with the purple team in Columbus. This is, to me, the most even game and the most hard to predict, the most unpredictable matchup in this what's left of the playoffs, in what you want to call the semifinal of each conference or whatever. And I think it's because I'm not sure how Oscar Pereira is going to really plan out to play this Columbus team, right? If you look back at the last time these two teams met up in Orlando, it was a 4-3 brawl. And it was a game where maybe things went off the ranges a little bit, and Oscar's going to be conservative. Oscar's not going to allow you to play what you want to play. They're not going to give you any space. And in that one, he was obligated to kind of just go back and forth. So because of that, I think Columbus is going to have to be very careful with an Orlando team that is set up to play in the spaces that Farsi or Nubota can give out, playing out that wingback position. They can really challenge what Morris does in the midfield. They got really good, experienced, tough to get through midfielders with Cartagena and Araujo. So when it comes to quality, when it comes to goal, you could say Columbus has the edge. But when it comes to knowing how to win a playoff game, being defensive, playing on the counterbalance, on the counterattack, I think Orlando can give Columbus some issues. So I'm excited to see this one. It's going to be about duels in midfield, duels in the flanks. Can Orlando, with their offensive power, really challenge a, at times, shaky defense of Columbus? Can they maybe pin those wingbacks back and not allow them to be as effective? So I think that this is going to be a match that it's anybody's game. Can Nancy, obviously maybe not, no one's expecting him to play any different than he has all season, because he has one way of play, and we're going to be offensive. We're going to get moving. We're going to have a lot of shifting between Cucho, Rossi, and Matan. That's going to be there. But how is he selective in certain moments in this 90 minutes or beyond? That's going to be a key component for this one. So I'm excited to see it. Great matchups. I'm going to stick with Columbus because they're my initial pick, and I'm not going to get away from that. But it would not surprise me if Oscar Pereira and this very South American team can make it difficult, make it a grind, and with a 1-0 lead, put away Columbus.
Purple team's a plus 124 as we're talking. 90-minute draws a plus 266. And Columbus plus 195. So you're getting the underdog push for that particular game. Nightcap, FC Cincinnati, who continues to discuss Matt Miazga, and they like to discuss Matt Miazga, and they like to talk about Matt Miazga, if you hadn't heard. FC Cincinnati's a minus 114. Philadelphia and the 90-minute draw, both are around plus 277 to 278. So I'm guessing Matt Miazga might be a game time decision. Look, Cincinnati is enjoying discussing trying to flip a narrative. He's out, he's gone, he's done. That out the door. But Cincinnati still wants to complain and discuss, these narratives that are coming out here. This came out, as you and I are talking on Wednesday, that they're now upset about narratives and things that were unnecessarily said and things improper about the situation. I forget the adjectives, but they're once again disputing the lay of events that led to the Matt Miazga activity here. So
this is not an isolated incident. If we were talking about anybody else in the league, I buy that from you, Cincinnati. But this is the guy that's repeatedly been put in positions like this. We all saw it. We know what happened. Let it go. And now your biggest problem is not even Miazga. It's all these other nicks and issues that you have all around. Santiago Arias was supposed to go with Colombia as he was called up by Nestor Lorenzo, but couldn't make the trip. He had some injury concerns. He wasn't at practice. He might be more than questionable for this game. That's a tough one. Nuwodo has been having some issues. Is he going to play this game? Is he not? What's going to happen if Miazga doesn't play and then Santi doesn't play? Are you ready to kind of shift and play with Powell or what is it, Ray Gaddis, the other guy that's on that side? I mean, these are not your regular starters. This is going to put you in difficult positions. Now, the good thing for Cincinnati is that Philadelphia is just as beat up, right? Because Carranza, we all saw what happened to Chicho. Chicho had a hamstring. Chicho had time to get better, but he came out and he wasn't even at 70%. I think we're going to see a lot of the same with Carranza. I don't know if he'll start. I wouldn't start him. Figure out how he's going to kind of set up the play. But without Carranza, without Wagner, without Glesner, this team is just a little bit different. And they already struggle. They already have a difficult time getting into games, staying in games. And if we're going to go to a matchup that it might be a snoozer, I'm going to go with the team that has more talent in specific parts of the field. And there's no doubt in my mind that Lucho Acosta and Alvaro Barreal are the most talented players in that matchup, that regardless of whether Vasquez is 100% or not, he's going to be a difference changer. But Puanza has been really good as well. I just think that there's more talent and there are more ways for this Cincinnati team to adapt than for Philadelphia, which is unfortunate because Philadelphia, I think a cycle's going to close here soon. I've been waiting for a managerial change and them to move on as well in that aspect. But you're talking about players that might not be there next year. Wagner, Carranza, all these players. Bedoya obviously should be gone or might be gone. So there is definitely a end of an era there for Philadelphia, and I think it's going to end in a negative because I don't think they have enough to beat Cincinnati in this one.
All right, I found the quote from Pat Noonan, courtesy of our friends at Pro Soccer Wire. Cincinnati head coach Pat Noonan says that the confrontation with Miazga and the locker room, reported to have confronted referees, has been overblown, claiming that some details were fabricated. Here's what Noonan says. It's an hour and a half after the game. He's got a pizza box in his hand. I think people have this notion that he was in his cleats running into that room. It's been fabricated. What happened? It's been fabricated. What happened? That part's also disturbing. My hope is they're going to make the right decision, having taken all the information over these last couple of weeks, end quote. And so he gets the third booking for being an idiot. And so he gets the 1-game suspension for yellow card accumulation. He's not going to be around. They're still waiting to hear from Major League Soccer if they're going to add to anything. So with 2 starters unavailable, Nick Hagland out the rest of the year with a hamstring surgery. Santiago Arias listed as questionable with an unspecified leg injury. It's like listening to the Kraken during the playoffs. Lower body injury, unspecified. Mm-hmm. 2 starters unavailable. Noonan figures to move Yerson Mosquera into the center of his back 3. Alvis Powell, a natural fullback who has a handful of appearances at right center back in Noonan's 3-4-3, and Ian Murphy likely to join. So the back 3 is some combination looking at like Mosquera, Powell, and Ian Murphy.
Yeah, and Ian Murphy hasn't been great. He does not give me or I don't think anybody confidence back there. And Mosquera, as good as he's been, this is a young player. And this is a player that even for the Colombian national team was just kind of coming in. And he's played some left back for Colombia. When he came in and played in this last one as well, he had to play it out wider as a left back again because of a yellow card. So I don't know if he's ready for this moment, especially against a team that can be so hard to defend as Cincinnati, that they're going to press as they always have. They're going to create mistakes. And you saw what happened against Red Bulls. Red Bulls gave him barely any moment, any chances to really make mistakes. The one mistake they had, Cincinnati was able to capitalize on. I just don't know if this Cincinnati team with Mosquera back there are going to have some problems building out of the back, getting the ball out. Mosquera is a very young player, but again, Philly, they have issues of their own. They're not a great high pressing team. There's going to be a lot of pressure on guys like McGlenn. There's going to be pressure on a guy like Ura that has had some up and down performances. So, end of the conclusion here is that Cincinnati, despite the issues, despite the problems, they just have more talent. And I feel like they're going to end up putting this one away in 90 minutes.
Sundays for the Western Conference. First match is the crossover that's on Apple and on Free TV. Houston and Kansas City at Hell in a Shell at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And this was the point that we've been making, Jarrett's been making it, I've been making it on the show, about Benny Ball and Ben Olsen. Ben Olsen, don't know where he finished in the Coach of the Year voting. He sure as hell didn't finish in the top 3. It was Pat Noonan, it was Bradley Carnell at all caps, and then it was Wilfred Nancy. I appreciate the respect for Wilfred Nancy, getting him into the discussion. I think he's done better with a different situation. I understand the shiny objects with Pat Noonan and Bradley Carnell, but Ben Olsen not finishing top 3 to me seems like a disservice to the award.
I agree. Whenever you bring a team and along with St. Louis, they're the other surprise team out of the West, and you're able to change the culture. You're able to reignite the fire within a guy like Hector Herrera. You're able to manage and adapt a guy like Dorsey to a new position and make him as effective as he has. You have developed and made a lot of growth with a young player like Nelson Quinones, a guy that had a lot of holes in his game at some point, and he just seemed to get better and better. And you have the ability to score within so many positions when Barrett is the guy that you go with, and you get everybody to buy in. I feel like you're doing a disservice to the award, as we've been saying consistently in this show, whether it's defender or whether it's coach of the year. I feel like there's a lot of issues and holes within it. For me, I'm with you. I think Carnell should have won it, and I definitely think Olsen should have been there. But to stick with the Houston team, I do believe that this Dynamo squad is as good as they are because of what Ben brought in terms of confidence, making everybody feel better. And you might be able to see a player within the Houston Dynamo tell us a little bit about Ben Olsen here in Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports tomorrow, or today, I should say.
There you go.
Thursday. So check that out. It's going to be good. It's going to be with Franco Escobar. So that's going to be a good one. But going back to Ben, I think Ben has done a fantastic job.
Houston right now is a minus 127. 90-minute draw is a plus 284. Sporting is a plus 313, which leads us to the late game and the game that you'll be interested in, but more than the other.
No, that's some interesting odds. I still think Houston's going to win.
Yeah.
I think Sporting Kansas City is a team that has nothing to lose. They have played very well. They're kind of pushed in this inertia that they brought in from the play-ins. But I think Denbet not being there is going to be an issue. He was so good from the left back position, working with Salawi, whether it was with the overlaps or the underlaps. I think that he gave a lot of width to that Kansas City team. I think Pulido was able to give you a little bit of that holding 9 abilities and allow Salawi to get in those internal channels sometimes because of a guy like Dembe. So how's that going to work out? I'm not sure. Rosero We all saw get him what he was a broken nose that he had. He's back in practice. Is he going to wear a mask? Is he not? Is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be out of rhythm? Is he going to not be as physical and win as many duels because of what happened? I'm not sure. At the end of the day, I think Houston is the more consistent team. I appreciate what Kansas City has done. I think they have nothing to be ashamed of, but I think Houston at the end of the day is going to pull this one. And the finishing that wasn't there against RSL, I think you'll see it against Sporting Kansas City, especially playing at home.
Late game for you at Lumen Field, 9:30 Eastern time on Season Pass. Seattle and LAFC. In this one, the numbers right now, Seattle's at a plus 131, 90-minute draws a plus 247, and LAFC is a plus 196. When you look at this one, what do you see?
I see a game that's going to be very even. You got the best defensive team in the conference against one of the best offensive teams within that conference. You have a team that knows each other well. Seattle, if anything, in the last two games has against LAFC this year, has been able to minimize Denis Bouanga's influence within the game. Goals haven't came from him. There are things that I think LAFC is doing differently. I think Christian Oliveira on the right and the changes that you've had, whether it's Bella playing that false nine position or not, are things that have changed within LAFC. But Seattle has done a good job against this squad. I like the attitude from Seattle. We're not the underdogs. We're going to play at home. This is where we shine in the playoffs. I think that the extra break allowed players like Reed Baker-Whiting to get into a better position physically. However, in yesterday's practice, or today, depending on whether we put it that way, it sounds like he had a setback. Yeah. He had some tightness. He was pulled to the side. He did not participate with the team. Nuhu is coming in late without a lot of play time because he only played 8 minutes with Cameroon. So is that concerning? I believe that when Nuhu is playing that position, especially against a team like LAFC, you become really predictable, and LAFC is going to know that. They're going to kind of get ahead. So it's going to be even in a very even matchup. I think that Seattle has the quality and perhaps enough of a culture to face this game differently, but they're going to need to play the best soccer of the year in order to beat LAFC. One goal is not enough. One goal is not going to do it against LAFC. So can Seattle find those goals? That's going to be a huge part of this matchup. Can Alex Roldan be able to get forward and be effective and being the guy with the best service into the box? Is he going to be able to do that without giving Bouanga too much space behind him? That's going to be a match to watch, that duel right there. Can Seattle's midfield with Joao Paulo and Josh Atencio create issues for Elie in the middle of the field? That's another matchup that we're going to want to see. That said, I think Seattle and LAFC are going to have a very close match. It's going to be a one-goal game. Whether it's a 2-1 or not, that's still to be seen. But I think Seattle will find a way to win it over LAFC.
And we'll discuss these next week when you come back on. I've got 2 news items before you go.
All right.
And I will let you choose. Do you want the Cascadia item first, or do you want the big coaching news first?
Give me Cascadia.
All right. So, and this is courtesy of our buddy Tommy Scoops. And Phil Neville now in place as head coach. Portland is making changes to the roster. Club has informed out-of-contract DP Yaroslav Nizgoda that they'll be parting ways. Sources briefed on the conversation tell The Athletic. That will officially open a DP slot for the club to use this offseason as they build around Evander Santi Moreno, Eric Williamson, and others. It's expected Portland use that DP spot in attack, either for a center forward or a winger who can score goals. Sources add the club is still negotiating with Sebastian Blanco, who's also out of contract. Parties considering whether a reduced salary and role could make sense. Blanco is 35, joined Portland in 17, hasn't played 2,000 minutes in a league season since 2019, limited to 425 minutes this past year. DP winger Yimi Chara could also be on the move if a deal presents itself. What say you?
I think it would be beneficial for this team to have some sort of consistency in a core group. So leaving a guy like Blanco, that is a locker room guy that can still be effective at a lot lower salary would be beneficial for Portland. Niasgoda is a guy that wasn't really able to be as effective as they thought he was going to be. So I have no surprises there. I think a center forward is something that the Timbers have needed for a very long time. And if they're able to get one, they're going to be a difficult team to beat. I think Jimmy likes Portland. He enjoys it there. Him and Diego are, encrusted into that city identity and everything. So I think he would like to stay. Him and Santi Moreno, I think, are two pieces that you can continue to build on from. So I like the approach to it. But can they go and find that real 9 that's going to put it all together? That's going to be interesting to see.
All right, the coaching news, and it's an interesting name, and this is the reason I bring it forward. Bruce Arena has put his name forward to Charlotte FC for their head coaching vacancy and is under consideration by the club. Once again, this is from Tom Bogert at The Athletic. Sources briefed on the search tell The Athletic. The club's coaching search is currently in its first round of interviews. Too early to suggest any candidate is a finalist or favorite. Charlotte aims to finalize a new hire sometime before Christmas. And so he goes through what happened in New England and the legalese that's attached. Arena put his name forward for DC United for their vacancy as well. So now it appears that Bruce Arena has put his name forward for DC and also apparently for Charlotte.
Well, I could see Bruce more in a DC United role than Charlotte. Charlotte's such a mess, and especially that managing component is so difficult when you have a club that has already shown you how quickly they can turn on a coach, and you have a coach that is fire like Bruce is, that in any moment he'll tell you to go find something to do with yourself, and not let that door hit you in the back.
Right.
I think it's just a bad component. It just doesn't match. When I look at the players, they don't really play to what Bruce's strengths would necessarily be. So I could see him more in DC United. I've heard of Giovanni Savaresi being a guy that a lot of people like in that organization. I think he fits a little bit better with the players that are currently there. So I think it's anybody's really game. Like you said, it's early in the process. I'm not surprised by any means that Bruce is submitting those resumes here and there. But I can definitely see Bruce more in line within bringing the glory back to DC United than rescuing a poor franchise like Charlotte has been.
Well, and Charlotte would be a situation where basically Bruce would want the keys to the car. So that would that Zoran Cornetta would be either neutralized or sent packing. And it would be a move that David Tepper, the owner, would sit there and go, I'm going to make the big splash. It's the Jerry Jones of MLS bit where it's like, I'm going to make the big splash. I'll bring in Bruce Arena, and then we'll figure out the rest later. I mean, it's like that's the kind of move that a David Tepper would make. And, Zoran Cornetta would be like, yeah, okay, great, fine, go find something to do,
And he'll find another job. But you're messing up. Once you get, let's just put it in line that if you decide to bring in Bruce, you're going to have to absolutely change everything of what you've already done and established within Charlotte. And even as an owner that wants to make a splash, are you really willing to get a guy like that to just provide you with a lot of insight, but a lot of issues and a lot of – Bruce is not a yes guy. Bruce, like you say, he's going to want the keys to the car. I'm going to do it. It's my way or the highway. And I'm not sure if there's that willingness from Charlotte to do that. But that's just me. It's my assumption. Like I said, I think Giovanni Savarese is a guy that would be a lot more culpable with what I've seen out of Charlotte lately, or at least over the last 2 seasons. So it's an interesting one, though. It's one to watch.
Let me give you another name for DC United and possibly New England if you want to put up with all the shenanigans going on with Kurt Analfo and the baloney. John Harkes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I'm not mad at that. But that's a whole other profile, right? I mean, that's kind of the interesting thing about what direction are you willing to go with. And it's a smoke and mirrors. It's a smoke and mirrors because a guy like Bruce Arena can allow you to just, let's bring him out. Let's put it on him, make him a scapegoat, make it a smokescreen for what we're not necessarily doing as a club. So it just depends on the profile of what you're willing to do. But that's an interesting one.
John Harkes left Greenville Triumph in USL League One. He has decided not to renew his contract, and so that's why I was thinking initially Harkesy to DC because you're getting to build, and you're building off of what Wayne Rooney has initially built there, and you're avoiding all of the shenanigans in New England, and we still don't know what we don't know what we don't know. That's the bottom line with all of the stuff with Bruce Arena, Richie Williams, Kurt Analfo, the front office. We don't know what we don't know. And there's a lot of information that is still there that we don't have. We just know event. We don't know anything about any of the details, although Blazing Musket has done some really good work when it's coming to laying out all of the stuff that they are uncovering. We discussed Thanksgiving. That was last week. So one more time, hit the plug for what's going on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Pulso Sports and the Soccer Bar.
Absolutely. Well, right after this, don't forget to check out Soccer Bar Pulso Sports. We have a fantastic conversation with Franco Escobar, former Atlanta United, someone who has his best season of his career. Most minutes in his career with Houston Dynamo, most goals, more shots on goal. He talked about switching from right back to left back with this Ben Olsen style of play and within Houston. Talks about Hector Herrera and his relationship with Hector, with his family, with his wife. Really interesting interview with Franco. He also gives a shout out to Atlanta. He says that it was a fantastic city, loved the fans, talks about that game, the first game at Mercedes-Benz, and just looking around and not believing the passion and the amount of fans. So check it out, all in Spanish for your Spanish speakers out there. Check it out. So we'll have that at Soccer Bar as well as Pulso Sports. Within Pulso Sports Friday and today, we're going to have some interviews that were available to us with Stefan Fry, who did not want to comment on any contract negotiations. Talk to Brian Smetzer, as well as, once again, Albert Rusnak, who's never shy away from the mics. So go ahead and check that out at Pulso Sports.
At El Rolo NW, it is Thursdays with Niko, even if it is Thanksgiving, but we do things a little early to hit all of our green lights. So once again, my friend, enjoy your Thanksgiving. We will catch up with you next week, and we'll be down to the Final Four in Major League Soccer.
All right, my friend. Thank you. Have a good one.